right, I am going to call to order the Monday, March 12th meeting of the Culture and Tourism Authority. Can we have call to order, please? And roll call.
Renee Plain.
Present.
Jesse Dahme. Sandra Nagel.
Present.
Karen Aboud.
Here.
We have a quorum.
And Pledge of Allegiance.
And to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Public comment.
Hi, I'm Sharon Ross with Capital City Arts Initiative. I hope you're here to introduce the new exhibition. Works, some water, some welded. It's a combination of work by Susan Church, who lives on a ranch east of Elko, and Stephen Reed, who lives in Dayton. And we're delighted with the way that the very different media interact with each other. I hope you enjoy it. There's wall text back by the door that gives you a lot more details about each of their bios and the artworks themselves. And the show's up through the end of June. On Wednesday, March 14th, CCI is presenting another Nevada Neighbors talk by Mark Salinas, and I know you've seen a lot of the things that he's been doing, but we're looking forward to introducing him to more of Carson City. So I hope you can join us. It takes place at the Union Restaurant. Refreshments 5:30, talk 6 p.m. Another one of our student shows, Art from WNC, is up at the Brick through mid-April, and then we're going to have a high school group show following that. So I'm very proud to announce that CCA has been awarded Challenge America grant from the National Endowment for the Arts. And these are very highly competitive national grants. The grant is for Rick Parsons' show, and that's the essay that I just passed out. That shows up through the end of May. I hope you can stop by and see it, and I hope you enjoy the essay. Do you have any questions? Okay, thank you very much.
No questions, but I think the bunnies are appropriate considering Easter's only like 3 weeks away.
That's true. She talked about how many rabbits there are out on the ranch, and they've been inundated with them. So that was the motivation for those. Thanks.
All right. I'm seeing no other public comments since Sharon's the only one here. So for possible action, approval of minutes, February 12th, 2018 CTA board meeting.
I move approval of the minutes of February 12th, 2013 as presented.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. Moving on, for possible action, adoption of agenda. Is there anything that we could possibly move? Do I need to say public comment if nobody's here to carry it throughout the meeting?
No, and that's just actually for staff to let you know whether or not something's being taken off the agenda or moved around.
Do I need a motion for it, or?
If you want. It's for action, but it doesn't have to be.
I move to adopt the agenda as presented.
All in favor? Aye. Okay. For possible action to accept the adjusted CTA fiscal year 18 budget report.
So this budget report is covering the accounting period of 7 of 2018, which is through January of 2018. It's 58% of the year. The room tax payments we've been received are through January 31st, which is pretty much to the December room tax payments. I did make a few changes to the projections that we talked about last month, and I'll kind of hit those when we get to them. The current revenue is at $1,368,598.83. And it's in orange, because Jesse, at the last meeting, you had asked about having the numbers that are on the agenda report on the back page. So on that back page, you see the orange, purple, and green box. That's what these other little, we have a lot of colors going on, so. And then on page 3, you'll see the purples. Those will add up to the expenses. And then the green is the fund balances. So back on page 3, we have the INCOT payments are current, so that's a 63%, so we're just a little bit over the year. And then on one of the first changes on the projection is I went ahead and I changed the salaries and wages a little bit to reflect that Joel's no longer in the salaries and he's down into the contracts. And there is a savings across there on salaries, but then we do have the expense of the annual and sick payoff, so you'll see a bigger savings next year because you won't have that payoff, that $49,000 that you see there. Next month, we'll have the addition of James's new position as the events manager and the office assistant. I'll have those in the projections. And then we'll have a difference from where Mark's included in here now, but he won't be. We'll have him in a different place, and the arts and all that. So right now, the salaries and benefits are at $341,000, which is at 53% of the year, so that one's right on the mark. On page 4, there are some more changes. I took some of the money that we had in the printing and advertising and moved it up into the contract employees because we are doing a lot more content creation. And so that one went up a little bit. Then we also took some of that from the printing and advertising to put it in the contractual services and agreement. And then you'll see that one went up as well because we added the contract for NB Consulting. And then we just did a few other little tweaks, like $4,000. I took $4,000 out of operating supplies and moved it to insurance because we had the additional insurance to cover more of the events and cover the art and such. Little things like switching the power and the utilities, those were kind of a little bit off because the gas wasn't as much as we had budgeted and the power was a little bit more. So the expenses right now are currently at $400,408.67, which is 47% of the year. So do you have questions on that part?
Chris, the only question I have is, you mentioned you moved Joel's, not salary now, his contract amount to 0340, right? That's the, in professional services?
Actually, he's in the, he'll be in the 0349, the contractual
Oh, the
agreement.
49, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So, how many months is, you said it's 54,605. When did we put him in the contract?
Well, I budgeted it for when he started through the end of the fiscal year. But this is, I've also added more for contractual agreements just for any other that are coming in. Because that one, we just moved a little more out of that one. So it should be pretty close. I don't have that exact number of what Joel's was with me right now, but
Okay.
I budgeted to carry it through the end of the fiscal year.
And then who else we have as contract employees? So those are, everybody else is in 340, right?
Yeah, we have some in 340. We also have like the auditors
Okay,
and stuff like that in there.
okay. Thank you.
And so the back sheets there, that's the, shows your adjusted revenue, your expenses, and your fund balances. So do you guys have any other questions on there?
So what this tells me is that in revenue, we are at 58.3%, In expenses, we are in 47%.
And the revenue is actually really a month behind because, we're reporting right now, we're paying December's revenue, we're reporting what you guys have paid in for December, but we're showing you the bills all the way through January.
I do have a question for that. I never thought about it. So our fiscal year ends on June 30th. So the June's room tax from 2017, we got that money in July.
Right, but we budgeted, we put it into
Okay,
that
so
fiscal year.
okay. So this
Yeah.
is really 6 months.
Right.
So then you should not say at 58% because our primary revenue is room tax, so it should be 50%.
Well, the reason it says 58, because that's what the accounting system, it's 58% because you're 7 months into the
I was
year.
getting excited, like 58%, and you were like only 47%, so it's actually 50%. So it's only like a 2.5% what we are saving, in terms of the revenue is actually 50% and not 58%. The time is 58%.
Yes.
Got it, thank you. Make a motion, Cam? I move to approve the adjusted financial year 2018 budget report as presented through January 2018.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, approved. Moving on to item number 8, for possible action to accept the ratification of the CTA Statement of Accounts Payable Checks and P-Card Report for January 2018.
So on page 2 is the accounts payable checks for January 1st through January 31st of 2018. We had $61,278.88 in checks. The first big one there is the $11,000 that was paid to Bank of America for the P-card charges you guys looked at last month. The next one down is the $3,475.43 for Conica. That's for the printer and the Duplo cutter lease from January 1st through the 31st. Next one down is the Nevada's Department of Taxation. That's the lodging tax for October and November. $7,562 to Nevada Magazine. That's for the 2008 Visitor's Guide ad in the Nevada Magazine's big visitor guide, and then some ads in the January-February issue. The next one down is Nevada Momentum, and that covers photography, content writing, video, and everything from November 16th through the 31st of December. That one includes downtown shopping promotions, art walk edits, First Nations focus, content creation, such like that. Next one down is Purchase Power. That's a refill on the postage meter, so we can send out the visitors' guides to the people who still want them by mail. And then $5,000 to Sierra Nevada Media Group, which is for targeted internet ads for the month of December. And if you've got questions on what those are, you have to check with Kyle.
I do have a quick question. So my understanding was the First Nations Focus was a Nevada Appeal publication. Is that something that is a collaboration between Visitors Bureau and Nevada or Sierra Nevada Media Group?
Yeah, the way it was originally set up was we were going to provide the content in exchange for an ad that was the Great Basin Native Artist exhibit, I believe. So that relationship, to my understanding, I've not changed that relationship. So I believe we're still providing content for that publication in exchange for advertising.
Is that for like the powwows and whatnot that we help market, or other things?
No, the advertising is for Visit Carson City inside that publication. So the series of ads that we're writing right now are on graduates of Stewart Indian School. So we were doing the 12 articles or the 10 articles for the artist in the Great Basin Native artists that were exhibited in the Visitors Bureau. And so this one now is a series on the graduates of Stewart Indian School and then promoting our cultural heritage in Carson City. So that's what the ad's focused on. So it's not specifically an ad for Stewart Indian School or for anything else. It's a Carson City ad that is relevant to Native American interests.
Kyle, I do have the question about the $5,000 internet ads. What are those?
So those are just the targeted marketing campaigns that we've been reporting on for the last few months now. So that's the geofence campaign, the site retargeting, and the keyword retargeting. And we've been doing that since November. And that is a monthly contract. So I've got the reports on the results of those for the last month, so you can kind of see the difference between the two. But that's what that is for. So
how much we plan to spend on that if we spend $5,000? So this, you said this is for 1 month.
That is for 1 month. That's what the original contract was for. It was at a time when we were looking at an increase in our budget and trying to figure out how to do a little bit more digital advertising because we felt like we weren't doing enough with that. So that's for 3 different campaigns. So that's for a dining campaign, a biking and outdoor campaign, and a arts and culture campaign. So split that 3 ways, and that's actually kind of what we're spending per campaign, which is more than what we're doing with the Reach Local. But the Reach Local is not a local company, and so we worked with Sierra Nevada Media Group first, and that was back in July when we started talking with them about possibly doing this campaign.
And who made the call to do the campaign? Because if our peak season is June through September, we this one hits leisure customer, right? It's not with the corporate. Corporate is going to come anyway. So if that's our peak time, why are we talking about bikes in December when our events are not until June? I think people tend to forget things.
Well, I mean, in this winter in particular, it's paid off really well because we've had a miserable snow season. So, doing targeting, that it's not just bikes, it's outdoors. So, you've got multiple images that slide through per campaign. So it's outdoors. There was a snowshoe one. There was, kind of showing the diversity of what it is. The other thing though is Epic Rides in June is a home run. We don't need to advertise for that one, So what we are trying to do is we're trying to get people to come here in the off season with their bikes, with their families, recognizing there's a waterfall and trails, and that's the same for the dining as well as the arts and culture. So our rationale behind that is that summertime's pretty easy. We were going to continue these ads through the shoulder seasons and the wintertime when it is traditionally a little bit slower.
So it means we will do this again in right now, the springtime.
We do have plans on continuing both of the retargeting campaigns that we have going and modifying them as the seasons go. We were doing a train one through October, November, and December to help with the V&T Railroad. When that closed for its regular season, that's when we switched to the dining. And so it'll go back and forth as the seasons demand. But actually, and I'll show this in my report, the dining ones for both the Reach Local campaign and the Sierra Nevada Media Group are way above what the industry standards would be for click-throughs and impressions and things like that.
When you say click-throughs, they actually go to a restaurant website and all I'm trying to see is, do we actually generate business? I can look at an ad for 5 minutes, but do I actually buy something?
What the analytics that they give back are click-throughs is clicking on the ad through to the URL that we designated. So for the dining one, for example, it's our dining page on our website. For the outdoors ones, it's our outdoors page, which showcases all the season's activities. And for the arts and culture one, that's our arts and culture page. So that would be the museums, the galleries, murals, all the different things on the arts and culture page that we had upgraded this last year. Now the Reach Local one, that one offers conversions. So you'll see in my report, they geofence the downtown. I'm going to try to use not a whole lot of jargon here. But they put a fence around the downtown Carson City. And so anytime somebody that was shown that ad drives through that area, they get registered as a conversion. Now, it doesn't say we could register your hotel, we could register a particular restaurant if we were trying to do something particular, but we're trying to see how many people are coming into Carson City as a result of being shown these ads. So, again, in my report, without diving into it, for the last month, 2,000 people that saw the outdoors ad came into Carson City. So I can show that, we had, for example, say impressions of 107,000. Of those 107,000, 200 people clicked through to the website, but 2,000 people that were shown that ad drove through downtown Carson City, and that time period is for 30 days after they were shown the ad. So again, I think this is actually a really, really powerful tool when you get that conversion zone, because, for example, if you were promoting your hotel and you were promoting your hotel to a particular group of people that were like at a particular event, somewhere, you can actually see the results of that marketing campaign in numbers of how many people actually came through your door if you set your hotel as the conversion zone.
And I'd just like to add, getting the sales tax revenue numbers, it indicates that something's working.
Something's going on here.
Well, and geofencing is just amazing. And I mean, the information that we give out as consumers, and then the information, it's scary how much information we give out, but the information that we receive as marketers is like gold. So geofencing is brilliant and scary all at the same time. So
It is, and this is the first year that we've done this. We haven't gotten a full year in with either one of these groups yet. So at the end of that year, and possibly sooner, there's been no indicators to say that it hasn't been working for us to have to reassess 6 months in. But we'll definitely look at, again, our budget versus the results versus kind of what our goals are for that next year, and completely, modify both of those campaigns accordingly.
So any more questions on the checks? Okay, so on the P cards on the next page, this is for P cards January 5th through February 2nd. And the first bigger one down is for Castanelli Landscape for $1,070.25. That was for I believe it was for the electrical site works to come in and take care of putting some lights in front of the sculpture out there. There's not a lot on that first page. And then on page 2 of the P cards, which is page 4 of the packet, is a couple of invoices from Conica Minolta. It says maintenance agreement 10/26 through 12/25, because that's the only way I can enter it in the system. But the first one's for 10/26 through 11/25. The next one's 11/26 to 12/25. Other than that, there's not a whole lot. There's the Reach Local geofencing invoice in there. Like I was just talking about, there's a couple of those, some travel expenses, but other than that, there's not a lot going on there. Do you have any questions on that one?
So Reach Local, we have two, we paid them twice. Was it that for 2 months?
No, we have two ad sets with them, and there's a third ad set. So you should be seeing 3 bills from Reach Local for $500 each month from continuing.
And for the record, Jonathan Bolware is in attendance.
I move to approve the CDA account activity statement of accounts payable checks and P-card charges for January 2018.
second.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? All right, motion passes. Thank you. Thank you, Renee, for covering for me. I was a little tardy today. All right, let me get my bearings here. Where are we at? Discussion only? Discussion only presentation on the Carson City Culture and Tourism Authority's 2017 Tourism Economic Impact Report.
I think I'll go ahead and take this, although it's listed for Kyle. So for the record, what's that? Oh, for the record, Joel Dunn, NV Consulting. Last month, I presented in draft form the Economic Impact Report for calendar year 2017. Been working closely with Nevada Commission on Tourism, or I think they're titled now as the Division of Culture and Tourism. And looking at some of the data that they had changed from last month, I want to make sure that we go over it. I won't show the PowerPoint. We're having an issue balancing between the two, input 1 and input 2, so I'll just go over what's in your packet. On the first inside page of the Economic Impact Report, and these are final numbers. So the lodging revenue that was collected in 2017 calendar year was $21,837,806. The lodging revenue in 2016 was $17,212,234, and that's an increase of 26.9%. So we are up 27% in calendar year 2017 in room revenue. And that number is spectacular. In talking with Nevada Commission on Tourism, their data is a little bit different. They only can report the 0.3% that's reported to taxation and paid directly to them. So what they've provided, and you'll see this in an article that we'll be putting out, a press release, I think after the meeting tonight, and it shows that we have, over the last 5 years, had a yearly average increase of 11%. The state average is closer to about 7%, so we are significantly above the state when it comes to collections. I think Clark County, although they collect 90% of all of the room revenues for the state, I think they're closer to that 6 to 7%. So we are way above the standard in the rest of the state. But I'll go over a little bit more of the numbers from Division of Tourism a little later. But the next page, lodging revenue by property, how that breaks out, that 21.8 million breaks out to almost 14.3 in the top 5 properties collecting the room revenue. The next top 6 to 13 properties accounted for 6.8 million. RV parks accounted for just nearly 320,000. With the remaining properties, and once again, those are all of the properties not included in the top 13, came in at 434,000. Room nights. So this does exclude 28-day plus occupancy. We had a total of 272,208 rooms occupied in calendar year 2017. The top 5 properties accounted for 133,000, 121,000 for the top 6 through 13, 9,294 spaces for RV parks, and the remaining properties accounted for just over 8,000 total room nights. Total visitors. Now, what's provided by Nevada Commission on Tourism in their TNS study, they break out the RTT territory. So they have a third-party surveyor that comes in and looks at total number of visitors per party size, total number of dollars spent per average visitor within the territory. They did go to the extent of breaking out just Carson City numbers over the last 3 weeks working with them. So the number did drop from the 2.9, which is the average visitor party size in the RTT, which is Reno, Tahoe, and Carson City in Douglas County, to 2.11 visitors in travel party size. Now, our surveys over the course of the last 5 years have shown that the majority of our major events are tracking a little bit higher than that. They're coming in anywhere from 2.5 people per room, sometimes even up to a little above 3 people per room. To stay conservative, I use the 2.11 as my basis of figuring out the total number of prospective visitors that came in. It is an estimate. I think it's on the conservative side, but it certainly doesn't show that 2.11 from the numbers from Nevada Commission on Tourism. They're not telling me that that's how many people stayed in each room. That's just how many people were the average party size. So with that, staying at the 2.11 as a conservative rate, we had 575,000 people that came into Carson City in 2017. And then you see the breakout for the properties. Using that same number and knowing that the average daily expenditure per overnight visitor. So once again, this is visitors in their study that stayed in a lodging property. This does not account for visitors that stayed with friends and family, stayed in rentals, stayed in any Airbnb. Only in our lodging properties, it was $147.74, rounded up to $148. That breaks out to $85 million that came in to Carson City in visitor spending, including lodging, the $21 million we brought in lodging. And once again, just saying that is just staying in lodging properties. You can easily estimate that if you take into account visitor spending from daytime spending and visitors staying in other locations, it could easily double. In fact, the numbers, I wouldn't be surprised if it came in closer to $200 million. Nevada Commission on Tourism only does that study every other year, so we don't have the current data. But I think comfortably we can show that, I know in 2015 they were at $154 million in Carson City specific spending. So going down visitor spending using that same methodology for 2016 was $70 million. That shows an increase of just over 20%. That's an increase of $14 million in total spending, including lodging.
Joel,
Yeah.
good question.
You bet.
On the visitor study, you said they do it every other year. Do they do it LCB years or non-LCB years?
it's non-LCB and it's reported in the following year. So although it's listed as a 2015 report, so yeah, it's nothing, it's certainly once again on the conservative side. And I will double check, but I believe the intent, and knowing that their interim director was also the one running the research department for years, I think the direction they're going is to look at probably doing it more than every 2 years. I think in discussions with them today, they're looking at providing more and more data to the rural communities as partners. Sorry, going over the next page, we're breaking out now the total revenue that was brought in to the lodging properties, the 21 million. So this is what's crucial to me. This is visitor spending, new wealth to our community from people that stayed in our lodging properties outside of what they paid for their room. Over $63 million came into our community. That's up from $53 million in 2016. That's an increase of 18.4%. Now, where there is a little bit of variance in those percentages of room revenue being a little bit higher, that's because some of our visitors are paying a little bit more for their lodging property than they did in the past versus what they're spending in the community. We're still staying consistent with using that $148 benchmark. Last page, or second to last page, is the breakout of the room tax collected. Room tax collected for calendar year 2017 was just over $2.4 million. And you can see how that breaks out. The CTA budget we retained just under $1.4 million. The V&T Railroad received $436,000, almost $437,000. The City of Carson City, for the interlocal agreement, received just a little over $218,000, as did the Arts and Culture Campaign. Travel Nevada, that's that 0.3% I talked about earlier. They received just over $90,000. And Carson City Youth Sports, we contribute 0.316%. It's the number one revenue generator for the youth sports programs in Carson City. They received just over $45,000. On the last page, I wanted to show the efforts that this group has made over the course of the 5 years that you guys initiated a major change in direction, in rebranding and rebuilding. When this team took over in 2013, the revenue for calendar year 2013 was just over $13 million. Once again, showing that in 2017 we brought in almost $22 million. That's an increase of 67.9% over the course of the 5 years. The data, once again, tying back to what the Commission on Tourism has, that's showing year-to-date 5-year average over 11% increase. So we're right, very close with what they're showing on that 0.3%. So very impressive numbers. Once again, this will go out in a press release, I believe tonight or tomorrow, and hopefully getting to all of the media partners by tomorrow. Okay. Any questions on it? Okay. And I do have the worksheet if you'd like it, Jesse. I know in an Excel, all these pictures and everything. I know you want the Excel sheet. I have it for you if you need it.
Kept that away on purpose, didn't you? You know.
Joel, I do have one question. When we were reviewing the monthly reports throughout 17, because right now I'm looking at your first page and the top 5 and 6 to 13 properties, we always saw the biggest ADR increase in those non-top 5 properties, right? But over here in revenue, we saw the bigger revenue increase in the top 5. So it means the 6 to 13 properties lost some occupancy to the top 5. Even they gained the ADR, so their RevPAR dropped compared to those 5.
Yeah, exactly, and that's why I think in the last meeting I was talking about, when you're looking at the opportunity of new properties, when you have a property that comes in that's going to bump above that ADR of $100, there's room for growth within that market. We're going to continue to see revenues increase. Occupancy may drop in those mid-level properties, but our revenues will continue to climb because of the available rooms pumping above that average daily rate. Yeah.
So your total room tax that you're showing is showing that no property is delinquent because it's exactly 11%, right? So none of the properties were late as of the full calendar year, is that right?
Correct. The only change on the 2017 was there was 1 month that as a credit to one of the properties based on an audit. That was the only change. I believe that the revenues collected was a little over $60,000, but the payment was $30,000 to us. So that was the only variance of that 11%.
And because we're talking room tax, can we delete that, the line item where we still talk about the 10% tax? I don't think anybody has paid us in advance.
I was going to do that, working on the room tax policies and stuff and updating everything and bring it out on the fiscal year, because a lot of the properties struggle when I start changing forms. They get really... So I was just going to try to do it all at one, a nice, clean, easy shot, and for the new fiscal year for July.
And
So
I know I asked for this like almost a year ago. Can we do internet reporting and direct, deposit? It'll be a lot easier for you.
I'm trying, but we still have properties that still use pencil and green accounting paper. So I have to make sure that when I do that I can handle getting it from both directions, because there's going to be a lot of properties that will not go online and do it. So I'm working on it.
Well, I can add, I think Chris is a lot closer than what she's telling you, because on the back end, the formulas and everything from the data we're collecting now for the reporting that she wants to bring out at the start of the next fiscal year, it's going to break out a lot more data, going to be consistent with what you're going to see in some of the major markets.
Chris, non-action items?
So the transient occupancy report for January, we have $1,115,408.92, which this month it's actually down $32,000 from last year. And there is a change on this form. Before, we used to have the top 5, and then we had the top 13, which included the top 5. We separated that out. So now it's just the top 5 are the 17,000 or 715,000 that you see on the first line, and then the top 6 through 13 will be your next top. So now that alleviates some of that confusion that we had before, hopefully. We have, in the top 5, we've got a property that's doing a lot of room renovations, so that's part of the reason for the drop. I wasn't going to point fingers, you guys.
No, everybody else is.
Yeah. And then on the top 6 through 13, half of the properties actually had brought in more in January, and half brought in a lot less, so I'm not really sure what happened there. And then the RV properties, for some reason, just went off the charts, so I'm not really sure what's going on. As far as the remaining, we have a lot of the smaller properties that have pretty much turned into 28-day stays, so I think that's why we're, starting to see that number keep decreasing. And then next, a little further down on the report, trying to add in, so we've got January for the calendar year, January through January, is 1,015,408, which is down, obviously, from last year at 3%. And then the next one's fiscal year, and that's July 2017 through January of 18. So we're at $13,531,061.18, which is actually up from last year, $2,768. So that. And then from 17 to 16, we were up 9%. And then from 18 to 16 for fiscal year, we were up 38%. The trailing 12, we're at $21,805,601.32, which is up 25% from 2017 and up 34% from 2016. And then on the back, the occupancy. The top 5 were 54% occupied this year, which is down from 57% last year. The top 6 through 13 is at 32%, which is down a little bit from 39% the previous year. RVs up 4.3% for January this year and 1.5% for January of 2017. And the remaining occupancy is up, but that's showing you the rooms that are available. So that's also including a lot of those 28-day stay room nights. So, and the 28-day stay room nights were at 16,442 that were occupied this year, or this month.
And Chris, again, last year was an LCB year.
Yeah, I looked into that. LCB actually started in February, so unless there was something else happened. Oh, okay, so that was.
Actually, they have the State of the State address, and there it brings a lot of folks
That
in
makes
for that
sense then.
particular,
Yeah.
so bumps things up.
Thank you.
Chris, I do see there's a big drop in available RV spots from 17 to 18, like 1,300. That's why I think we see the occupancy increase. What was the reason why we had that many spots?
I did not ask them. I can find out for you if you want to know, but I didn't.
Somebody's like doing renovation, like one of our hotels, and
Yeah, I can look into it. I'm not really sure. I just didn't.
I know one of the proposed changes that'll come back in for the next fiscal year is really breaking out the occupancy based on the 28-day. But the area that we've seen the most increase in 28-day occupancy is in RV spots. So although we are listing 16,442 28-day plus, a greater portion of those are actually RV related. So it might be tied into them, what you're seeing as a decrease. I don't know, but I'll help Chris when she looks into that.
Joel, just a question for you. Do you know anything on the status of the RV park that's supposed to go in out there off of Hot Springs?
No, not the RV park, but a little bit of information on the resort. I know that he's been working with the CTA staff, not myself, and I don't know how much you can do on any disclosure, but I know that there's certainly plans for the resort, which I think ties into then the addition of the RV park. Okay. All right, on to me. So on the contract update for the scope of work, just a little bit as far as the strategic plan, as mentioned last month. I've been working with Kyle for the last couple of weeks on identifying some of the KPIs, the key performance indicators that'll be listed to measure Kyle and the success of the marketing campaign in that strategic plan. Some of those will include certainly all of the social media. So when we talk about the Facebook, the Twitter, Instagram, YouTube account, and the website, actually, we'll talk about the website. So all of those, you're now able to do a lot more data research and comparative data. So we'll be looking at the percentage of change as far as total followers, engagement rates, average impressions per post, and then breaking out per dollar spent whenever you have any of the paid ads that are on both Facebook and Twitter. And so there, I think we'll also have to add in one thing we didn't talk about is some of the video content. That won't be a comparable looking back into how we've used it historically, but moving forward, we certainly know that there's going to be a lot more video content pertaining to the Facebook so that we can keep those numbers up. The benchmark that will be used for Kyle is, first of all, comparing to industry standards, but because we've been consistently above industry standards, there'll be a second benchmark of where we've been year to date leading up to the 2018 introduction of that strategic plan. So I will continue. On the website, once again, you're going to be looking at the top five pages, and that'll be a report that'll come back to you annually throughout the strategic plan, percentage of change in sessions, change in unique users. As far as paid print advertising, compared to the prior year benchmark and the reach per dollar spent. And the reason why we're going to do the reach per dollar spent, there's going to be quite often you're going to vary. You may not spend as much in a paid advertisement on Facebook as you did last year, so it's just going to be the return on the actual dollar spent. So those will come back in draft form. I'm going to work with James over the next couple of weeks on, once again, looking at the current events. We'll set in those same KPIs for James, so there's a benchmark of how many events are coming in, so that if he sees a decline in sports tourism, he knows where to build in that. We will have some new benchmarks moving forward because James is certainly looking outside of just sports tourism and a lot of different events, and I know he's going to go into more detail on that. So that's it so far on the strategic plan. I wanted to go over the current grants. Part of that, the contract, I'm doing a grant evaluation and a grant, our current audit of our grants. So the current grants that are out for the CTA, starting back, you've got the 24 hours in Old Pueblo. That has been completed, and Kyle had talked about that last month. He may be adding a little bit tonight. The Sea Otter Classic, that's once again a grant, partnering with Nevada Commission on Tourism and Epic Rides to have a booth set up with the 70,000 plus visitors that are going to be in Monterey, and I think that's the third week in April. The Visitor's Guide reprint, that once again is a completed grant, and we reported last month on the ROI of the new Visitor's Guide. The Nevada Single Track Adventure, there's 2 phases, 2 grants. That's a statewide grant. Kyle will continue to give updates on that, but and once again, all of these so far, we will be meeting the outcomes and the estimated outcomes of each of the grants. The NEA Big Read grant, so that was a marketing campaign, and I know that Kyle will be working with Mark Salinas and making sure that we fulfill that grant, and that doesn't start, I think, for another month. The Carson City Ghost Walk video, that will be completed before the end of the grant cycle in June. We're waiting for better weather and greener trees and shrubbery so that we can have a professional video. So Nevada Magazine advertisement, that's another one that we awarded $5,000. So that's in it. Chris already touched on the fact that we've already put in the advertisement for the events guide from Nevada Magazine. So that's part of that grant. The Reimagine Space grant, I believe that the money that was set aside, the initial investment from the RAC, is going to be used in conjunction with the NEA Big Read grant, and that there's going to be some other improvements. I don't think that it'll match the scope of work that we put together for the Reimagine Space. I'll bring that back next month. If we can work it in, great. If not, all we'll have to do is just forfeit the grant. It's not forfeiting money. It's basically saying we're not going to ask for reimbursement because we didn't spend the money as projected. And the last one is the actual phase 1 of Nevada Single Track Mountain Bike Adventure, and I'm sure Kyle can give you any more detail on that. But those are all of your current grants that are out. I'm confident, with the exception of the Reimagine Space, that we will definitely fulfill the grant requirements on all of those, and you'll get a full reimbursement. Okay.
Yeah.
And unless there's any questions of me.
We don't have any.
I know.
Kyle?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
All right, cool. Kyle Horvath, Marketing Director. Thanks for the opportunity to talk about what we've been up to for the last month. Last month, we talked a lot about going out to 24 hours of Old Pueblo, so I'm going to go ahead and start out with a report from that. Again, this was grant funded to go down to Tucson, Arizona to promote the Carson City Off-Road event, as well as our community as a whole. The event drew over 4,000 attendees between the riders, the support staff, the vendors, and the crew. Our booth was pretty much a key spot in the vendor area. You couldn't get in and out of the exchange tent without walking past Visit Carson City. We had 4 of us down there to kind of cover everything. Again, it's a 24-hour race, so there's a lot of things going on. So we had 4 people in the booth, passed out over 700 pieces of promo material. So that's visitors guides, trail maps, art guides, keychains. That doesn't include the Ride Carson City stickers, which just flew off the table. The exposure for Carson City, being in front of that many people, just having the tent, seeing them there, having those personal conversations was really, really good. But again, Todd does a great job with the Epic Rides family, and so every time he spoke publicly, Carson City was mentioned as a community. The Carson City Off-Road was mentioned. There was a podcast that went with Lance Armstrong, as well as the dignitary for the event that Todd was doing. We were mentioned a number of times in there. And then as we were going through and getting to ride the course, every time somebody from the Visit Carson City team came through the booth, the announcer made a long diatribe about Carson City, the community, the race, and everything like that. Most of the conversations were about the event attendance, people in Arizona that have not been there. It was a lot of people from New Mexico, San Diego, even as far as Texas. And so talked a lot about the race, the event, and then there was a lot of relocation talk. A lot of people, just looking at Nevada because it's getting a lot of buzz, and they want to know why, and they want to know what's going on. So it was good. It was an amazing event. That area is absolutely gorgeous. I think if it wasn't a grant-funded thing, considering the 14 hours to drive down to Tucson, probably we'll pick a different event next year to go promote. But it certainly wasn't. It had the benefit that we were looking for. It was just a really, really long drive there and back. So we'll look to do another one for next year. Any questions on that one?
No, just on made me think. We mentioned Epic Rides. How's that trending for this year coming up?
Everything seems to be doing really, really well. When I was talking with Todd, we actually had more percent of attendance sign up than some of the other locations. So that was good. And we've got our pre-rides coming up, demo day coming up in the beginning of June, and pre-riding the course. And then they also just launched the Hail to Trail fundraiser that's drawing attention to all the different communities. But as far as I know, and I haven't sat in on any of the logistics meetings, but from an attendance standpoint, Todd's very happy, and they also booked the headliner, which I'm not going to say who it is because they're going to announce that first. But from their end, they're very happy with how the progress is going. So
We get an increase in riders this year, right?
we do. I believe the 1,200 is the projected.
Yeah, it was bumped up to 1,200. As far as I know that I sat in my last meeting, as far as the master project review, James is taking over as the events manager. He'll be representing the CTA at all of the city MPR meetings. The city's got this nailed. They've already got their traffic reports, their traffic studies are done, slam dunk. But no, we're planning for 1,200. With that, we always have probably 2 to 3 to 4% above that. I know that the last time I think we had said 900. I think we had 963 riders. So yeah.
All right, cool. So going into more of the traditional stuff, this last 28 days, we had 8.3 thousand unique users to the website, equating in 10,000 sessions. So both of those numbers are up 4.4% over what last month's numbers are. And I'll equate that to the marketing campaigns, and you'll see in the results how much better this month was for the retargeting campaigns that we were doing. The top pages, of course, was the home page. No surprise. Dining moved up into second place. Again, I feel like a result from the marketing campaigns that we've been doing. The general things to do page, which includes arts, history, outdoors, all of the above. The Kings Canyon waterfall post, and that's the Google Trekker project that we did a few years ago. And then things to do mountain biking, and then things to do art. So these are the top hit pages. Coincidentally, those are also the pages that we're sending people back to with our digital marketing campaigns. For Facebook, our engagement rate was up 93% from the previous month. We broke the 4,000 page like benchmark last month, but this month we had 72 new page likes, which is above and beyond what our average usually is, which is about one person per day. That's also the same with Twitter as well. So last month was pretty big on Facebook. Our top post, which kind of bulked that up, I did a snow post during this last weekend for the first snowfall really that we got all season. It had a reach of 2,000 people, engagement, 283 different individual engagements. So that's likes, shares, comments, things like that. So that's a 14% engagement rate. And then we posted our featured story that we did on Sherry Rupert in the Stewart Indian School, which got 3.6 thousand unique reach, 288 unique engagements, so an 8% engagement rate. Again, the benchmark for engagement rate is like 1 to 3%, so it is significantly higher, than what the industry standard is. Twitter, not a whole lot to report other than 41 new people this last month. So again, above the one person per day, we're now up to 3,641 followers and a 2.9% engagement rate. So still just above industry, but not as much as Facebook. And that's because we put a lot more effort into Facebook this last month than we did Twitter.
Question for you on Twitter.
Yes.
Are you guys doing any boosted posts or anything like that?
We have not done any paid anything on Twitter yet, and I keep like setting that as a goal, and the opportunity that, you know, kind of slaps you in the face hasn't quite slapped me in the face yet. So it's on my radar to do that, and that is one of the key performance indicators for this following year. So all things considered, yeah, we're going to start doing that, but no, I haven't done anything on Twitter yet.
Well, and I mean, I know our Facebook engagement is like awesome.
Right.
But I would love to see some more advertising on Facebook too, because looking at the report with $20 on Facebook advertisings for a month, like, we could have so much more.
We could. We absolutely could, you know. Again, the thing is though, is I want to make sure that when we're doing a boosted post or a paid ad, that it's, you know, something that's going to have some sort of tourism draw. I mean, I could do boosted posts all day long about every single thing going on. Not saying that I haven't maxed that out. I could definitely do more. But I certainly want it to be something that's going to be impactful and something that's going to have a tourism-related impact to it as well. So, but I duly noted, I can't wait to start reporting on some Twitter advertising because it is on the benchmark. Instagram, we surpassed 2,000 followers, so that's up 33 new people in this last month. The post with the most likes, and I wasn't able to put the picture up here, but it was one that was done at Washoe Lake of one of the corrals right before the snowstorm. So it had 1,100 impressions, which is actually like pretty big per post. For each one, it had 170 likes, and I went and looked back. Our highest like to post is 195. So we are about to break the 200 like mark, which again is kind of a personal goal of mine for Instagram. So these are the paid targeted advertising. So this is with Reach Local. So this is a group, they are out of San Jose, but they're strongly tied in with the Epic Rides family, and that's how we got connected with them. And so what I'm showing here with the outdoor ad is kind of the results over the last couple months to see, you know, how it's done. This is just one of the $500 ones that we're doing. So again, we've got 3 of these that are out at $500, but you can see how the impressions, the click-throughs, the click-through rate, and then with Reach Local, we have the conversion. So let's look at February. We know that of the people that were shown the ads in January, so of 108,000 impressions, 2,107 actually came into Carson City. So we had 126 people click through to the ad. Again, a click-through rate, 0.8 is reason to celebrate when you're doing digital marketing. So we are well above 0.8%, or 0.08%, excuse me, for the click-through rate, and then we can tell with the conversions how many people are actually coming in. So the conversions are always a month behind because it leaves the 30-day window open for that. So that was the outdoors ads. The dining ad, again, you can see the click-through rate is above that 0.08%, and for the dining, 379 people came down into Carson City. And we're looking, the arts and culture one, we've not had a full month where that's run, so they've not been able to give us the full report on that. When I do report on that, we won't have had that 30 days afterwards, so I won't be able to report on the conversions part of it. These guys provide the conversions, and that's why we went with them. It was an added benefit that we hadn't seen in any of the other offers, so that's why we took a risk with Reach Local to see, because it is actually kind of nice to see how many people do come through. And that conversion zone can be as small or as big as we need it to be, and I really encourage individual businesses, if they're looking at digital marketing, to find somebody who does have a conversion zone so that they can see really what the true results were, how many people
So
came
Kyle,
through the door.
on the arts and culture, it'll be a couple months then before you can really.
Yeah, I'll report how so what I'll be able to report next month will be the impressions, the click-through rate, but I won't be able to report on the conversions yet.
Do they have they've got the click-through rate standards, industry standards. Do they have the conversion industry standards as well that they could give us?
I will check with them. I've not had that conversation, but that's something I'll look into.
I mean, the conversion rates seem really high, which is great. So it'd be nice to see where we're at compared to other people, other industries.
And with the Reach Local ones too, which is different from the Sierra Nevada Media Group, the Sierra Nevada Media Group, we promote outside that 50-mile radius. So it is actually really more Northern California, Southern California, all of those areas there. because we don't have the opportunity to have the conversion zone. So because we've got this one with Reach Local, what we're actually doing is targeting the restaurants in Reno, the lodging properties in Reno, Tahoe, and really looking at trying to get those people that are already here and that already have their hotel rooms to come down to Carson City and enjoy the dining, the arts, things like that. So 2 completely different targets, 2 completely different opportunities to show results. But this is about a third of what we're spending with Sierra Nevada Media Group. So the ones with the Sierra Nevada Media Group doesn't have the conversion zone, but you can kind of compare and contrast to what we're doing with Reach Local. So in February, lower impression rate. Well, you can say, so January, February, you can see kind of what the impressions were and the click-throughs for arts and culture. So that's going to our website. So 0.19%, 0.22% in January. Again, 0.08 is your benchmark for what you're trying to go for. The outdoors, again, same thing, pulling in a 0.24 click-through rate. You can see the impressions are significantly higher because we are paying more for impressions through Sierra Nevada Media Group, but the results are phenomenal. And then I put this one, so in December, we finished out the train campaign and switched to dining. So you can see January and February's results for the dining campaign. And again, way above industry standard. So upcoming events and campaigns. April is kind of the month of sports tournaments. So we've got Pi Day Run coming up on March 14th. Isn't a huge draw, but then there are 4 soccer tournaments and 2 other running events in April. So you've got the Pi Day Run in March, and then April 7th is the Carson Canyons Half Marathon. April 21st is the Escape from Prison Hill. There's a soccer tournament at Livermore Park on the 7th and 8th of April. Another soccer tournament, a BLM Memorial Tournament. Is that baseball, softball, or is that soccer as well? Softball. Okay, so that's at Centennial Park on the 21st and 22nd. And then, of course, the Comstock Shootout, the 21st and 22nd at Livermore Field, as well as the 28th and 29th. For the Escape from Prison Hill, is going to be the launch of the Run Carson City campaign. So that's going to follow with the rat card, the press release, and a lot of specific posts towards running and all the running events that we do have. The running community has actually been using that hashtag pretty frequently. So we're seeing the same kind of like acceptance of it from the running community that we did from the mountain bike community. We're going to be doing a dining campaign going from April into the beginning of the summer, so the end of May, and that'll include 6 articles on different things like our farm to fork scene, our food truck scene, vegan, vegetarian options, unique, just all the different experiences around the dining aspect of it, and then we plan on using that content to try to get a little bit more national attention and try to use some more of the dining influencers to really draw attention to our dining scene in Carson City. And then, of course, I also got an additional grant for the NEA Big Read campaign to help Mark market those events that he's doing with the library. And I believe the list of that is coming out in their next Arts Commission meeting. Let's see. I think what I wanted to add with that one is that the interactive mapping project that we were doing with Public Works GIS has been signed off on. So all the functionality, the look, everything that we wanted is done. We're doing our part to put the fine tuning on the text and the images and things like that, but looking forward to launching that publicly. We did check with the app company. We're going to be able to put that into the app, no problem. Parks and Rec is signed off on the trails aspect of it, so they're going to be utilizing that as their map, and it is going to be, again, open and welcome for anybody to use because it is our Carson City map. It's going to be the dining, the lodging, the outdoors opportunities, historical, the Blue Line Trail will be on there, all of that. And then I've got a pretty big month of travel coming up, and so this weekend, as part of the Highway 50 grant project, I'm going out to Ely and Caliente to put on marketing workshops for their businesses and the communities out there to try to help them, market their mountain biking assets and bring them up to date with where we are on that project. Rural Roundup, which is the regional, the statewide marketing thing, is the 11th through 13th, and then Monterey Sea Otter Classic, which is a grant-funded trip, is the 19th through 22nd. Any questions?
The first one, you're only going for a day, not like a month, right? Because it says 4:15.
Oh, yeah, so, yes, you're right about that. I mean, the weather's going to be bad. I mean, it might I'm out of here, guys. No, I'm coming back.
I do have some questions. You mentioned some articles on dining and pushing those out. Do you know where you're hoping to get those published, or?
We haven't identified specifically yet, but if you've got any recommendations, I definitely would like to get, into the edible Reno one, but I'm looking more again at Bay Area. And so the cool thing is with the retargeting campaign that we did for dining through Sierra Nevada Media Group, the locations that we targeted, that we geofenced, were the top 10 farm to fork restaurants in California and the top 10 culinary schools in California. So we figured getting the people that are already into that scene and the people that are looking to advance that scene. And we saw, once we designated that, we saw the click-throughs and the results, just jump dramatically. So it's going to be along those lines. But again, if anybody, and Karen, I know being in the industry, if you've got any advice or recommendation of places where you'd like to see Carson City dining, just let me know and we'll work to make sure that we're in there.
And then something else I would like to see, and I think I mentioned it last month, is seeing like your PR report of the press releases that go out, because I know you listed like a whole bunch of stuff, but I like to see those things.
Yeah, I think you would ask specifically for earned media or something along those lines.
I had asked, for the list of where we've been published and then the earned media evaluation.
Okay, I did not get any of that for you, but maybe that'll be something I'll compile in between trips and shoot that over.
James Alanoa, events manager. Still juggling double duty work with the previous scope of work we're doing, but I've had the opportunity to meet with some of the local auxiliaries and learn some of their challenges and things like that. It was actually through the Boys and Girls Club that we learned about one of the major events that we typically bring in, our wrestling tournament. They had some challenges the past go around, and they were considering not returning. And so I was able to meet with Kelly Thomas. He's a local guy here, also part of the board for the wrestling for the state of Nevada. And we're able to work together to try and bring that back. And so that's an immediate event that I think impacts us. Fortunately for us, we were able to catch them in time before they made some future plans. And so there are some challenges that we have to overcome in order to make sure that they continue to stay here. But it's something that I'm working on with them.
Can we overcome them?
Yes, we can.
Oh.
Definitely can. In the near future, we'll be putting together a presentation on the scope of where I think we should head and some of the opportunities that we haven't capitalized on, and that's something that I'll do a presentation on that in the future. Trying to balance double duty right now, so it's a little challenging, but that's all I have for today.
And we posted James his old position, or the new, because we talked about two positions, right? One,
We've
obviously he's in that
only
one.
taken care of James. The other one, we have some issues we're working on with HR, and we'll be taking care of that soon.
All right. Because he mentioned double duty twice, so that's his way of saying get the position posted.
I know.
There's code in that.
So do we have any more agenda items other than what we've already discussed that you guys would like?
If Joel can give us kind of an update on the V&T progress.
Okay. For this meeting, or?
No, for the next.
For the next
For the
meeting,
next meeting.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Last time, I think
He's
I
getting
was,
ready to go, too.
I was cut a little short, but yeah,
He lit that
absolutely.
microphone real fast.
Yeah.
Okay, so then the next meeting will be April 9th at 4 PM. I am going to try to bring back our projected budget that we're going to send to taxation for fiscal 19. And, yeah, so we'll see back in April.
I do have one more agenda item that I wouldn't mind seeing is, going through the process with Joel's contract and whatnot, it made me realize that we haven't really seen all of the different contractual agreements that we have. So I would love to see what those look like, what we're contracted for and what we're looking at for, I know we've got it projected in the budget, but I'd like to see the breakdown of that.
Joel's contract?
No, we've seen Joel's contract, which made me realize we have other contractual agreements that I don't know that we have seen as a board. So I wouldn't mind seeing those and seeing what the scope, as we're talking about the strategic plan and scope of work for all of the different things that we're working on. I'd like to see what other contractual agreements we have and what the scope of work are or is in those agreements. So.
Do we have those contracts with the vendors we're talking about? Can we share those publicly, or?
Yeah, I don't know. I'll have to look into that to see if we actually can do that. And some of them that we
Could be
actually have
proprietary
listed as,
information on that, then.
yeah. And some of them that we actually have listed as contracts, they're contractors that do work for us, but we don't have a set, we use them as a as-needed basis, so
All right, we'll
I'll have
talk
to
about
look
that
into
one
that.
before because
Okay.
that one can
Thanks.
get a little dicey.
And I think that's it
Joel, I have
for
a quick
us.
question for you. We saw a 27% room revenue increase last year. To tell you the truth, this year, I feel there'll be a drop. It's a non-LCB year. We don't have the floods. We don't have FEMA. We don't have the big FEMA call center here that we had later part of last year. So please keep that in mind when you prepare the budget. We're going to see a drop from February to June for sure. We know that. We're already feeling it, all our properties. So please keep that in mind. And that way we can also adjust our expenses to see if we need to eliminate some, because we cannot repeat 27% every year.
Yeah,
You
that's
know-
right, because FEMA was huge for us this year.
Absolutely. Yeah, we're tracking now at just under 26% for current fiscal year. We're certainly not going to stay there. Staying conservatively, I know Chris's approach in preparing the budget, we've always stayed ridiculously conservative, near that 3.5 to a top at one. I think in 2017, we had projected a 6%, but we will stay very conservative with any revenue projections.
All right, I guess there's no public comment, so we'll move on to any other board comments or announcements.
I'd just like to say that hopefully we'll go live for tickets March 17th for the Concert Under the Stars, which will be Jefferson Starship and Midnight North this year. So,
Forward to that.
and I'll be talking to you, Kyle, about tickets. And
All right, possible action to adjourn? All right, we are adjourned. Thank you, everyone.